June 24th, 2025. And of course, a lot's going on in the world, including a ceasefire. So we'll be talking about that here on World Edition and seeing what other news stories are out there that might be of interest to folks here on Pod TV and those that are watching Pod TV as well. So, like I said, there's definitely a ceasefire going on between Israel and definitely the other people involved include, of course, Iran and all along those lines. So that is one of the news stories that is out there that people are talking about in terms of interest and all along those lines. So like I said, that is one of the main stories coming out of Google News and even some of the other news outlets as well. So definitely that is something that people are talking about, just like they're talking about oil is falling so much. It's now cheaper than it was before the Iran Israel conflict. So definitely Trump has declared victory as Iran and Israel acknowledge their shaky ceasefire. So that is definitely something that is in the news as well. And NATO leaders are expected to endorse a new defense spending pledge. So that is something that is going on as Trump heads to the NATO summit on the heels of a possible Israel-Iran ceasefire. So definitely that looks like that is a done deal right now, and we'll see what's going on in that space. But he is definitely heading over there to the NATO summit. And Trump is committed to the collective defense of NATO as long as Europe and Canada hit new military spending targets, according to what Root says, or Rut, I should say, and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that people are talking about. Palestinian health authority says Israel kills 25 waiting on aid as death toll exceeds certain amounts and all along those lines. So definitely it looks like at least 39 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, including 17 at aid site, according to what Hamas reported yesterday. Like I said earlier today, it was reported that the 25 were killed while waiting on aid as that death toll continues to go up and all along those lines. Military strike very weak, says country gave early notice of attack. So Trump rebuked both sides hours after the ceasefire, and calm returns to Qatar following Iran's attack on Al Udeid air base. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely lots going on in the world, and of course, a lot's going on here in the U.S. as well. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And definitely we'll be getting to a number of these. Lieutenant Governor, well, we'll get to that story in a second, but it looks like Mamdani's victory would signal a seismic shift in national politics and a test for the socialist movement. So New Yorkers vote in mayoral primary as polls shows Mamdani leading Cuomo, and definitely that's by 14 points in a survey ahead of New Yorkers' vote. So we'll see how that all plays out and what goes on in that sense. The Senate GOP's tax cut is projected to cost $4.2 trillion with costly SALT deal pending, and Republicans are struggling to finance Trump mega bill mix. So on the Capitol agenda, Thune's 48-hour mega bill scramble is still what folks are talking about as well. And senators will stay in D.C. until Trump's big, beautiful bill passes, is something else that Thune said, and that was reported on yesterday. Lieutenant Governor Patrick rips Governor Abbott for vetoing the THC ban, digs in against calls for regulation. So, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is puzzled by Texas Governor Greg Abbott's veto of the bill banning THC. Says the governor of the state of Texas wants to legalize recreational marijuana. So, definitely that's something that folks are talking about in the news as well. And that early season heat dome brings highest temperatures in years to parts of eastern North Carolina. I know yesterday here in Durham, North Carolina, we got up to like around 100 degrees. And Central Park over there in New York hit temperature records last seen on this date in 1888 as heat wave hits eastern North Carolina. So that sprawling heat dome could smash June records in Northeast, Midwest, including hundreds in New York and Boston. And Tuesday is expected to be one of the hottest in a string of hot days. So, like I said, it's supposed to be another hot day on today as well. Trump voters tell ABC News that Iran strikes don't conflict with his America First agenda. Iran says U.S. attack will get response as Trump claims we took bombs out of their hands. As U.S. cities heighten security, Iran's history of reprisal points to murder for hire plots. So be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Pentagon video shows B-2 bomber taken off from a U.S. base to strike Iran under Operation Midnight Hammer. So definitely there was even an article in the New York Post inside the cockpit of a B-2 bomber, one of America's most secret aircraft. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about, and that B-2 is back and all along those lines, or those B-2s, I should say. And it looks like the water was just screaming, is what a witness of a boat tragedy that killed 8 said about that incident that took place in Lake Tahoe. So boats rocked by thunderstorms in South Lake Tahoe, and definitely that's something that's going on in the western part of the state. Supreme Court is allowing Trump to restart swift deportation of migrants and all along those lines away from their own individual countries. So Supreme Court lets Trump deport migrants to countries other than their own. So that is definitely something that is being in the news as well. Sotomayor accuses the Supreme Court of rewarding lawlessness by Trump administration in a fiery dissent. So that's something else that folks are talking about as well. And RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz announced insurers' pledge to reform prior authorization. So RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz says health insurers will cut red tape on prior authorizations. So definitely that's something that'll be interesting. Trump administration secures pledges from 75% of the health insurers in a bid to improve patient care. And Senate Democrats are hunkering down ahead of war powers confrontation. So definitely we'll see whether this goes on or how this goes on, because Congress has tried and failed for 2 decades to wield its war powers. So a lot of people are asking, we had this conversation yesterday with David Walker, did Trump violate the Constitution by bombing Iran? And according to David Walker, he did not do that, and all along those lines. So like I said, that is some of the things going on. And Marjorie Taylor Greene flips out over dirty rumors about her and Donald Trump. So lots going on in that space. And the Trump administration says Kilmar Abrego Garcia will never go free on American soil. So judges' ruling casts doubts on Trump administration's claims against migrants. So the judge has ordered, this was a couple of days ago, the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia as he awaits a federal trial. Senator Markuski reported on why she's having more talks than ever on the state of democracy. And it was reported in the Washington Post that she said standing up to the Trump is a lonely position in the Senate. So definitely she was even in The Guardian talking about Trump's America and the intensity on the security of our democracy. So definitely that is going on. And she even has a new book out where she's taking readers inside her years in the Senate. And a U.S. Marshals operation, Operation Dragon Eye, recovered 60 missing children in Florida. So it led to the recovery or location of 60 critically missing children. And it looks like they have definitely rescued these folks in a massive sting and all along those lines. And Judge halts another Trump administration effort to block foreign students from attending some of the universities, for example, Harvard. So Harvard is back to the negotiating table with Trump and all along those lines. And judge indefinitely blocks Trump's proclamation suspending new Harvard international students. So definitely that's one of the news stories that's out there as well. And the Trump administration has rescinded the roadless rule that protects 58 million acres of national forest. So it looks like they'll be ending that protection. And we'll see what that means for those particular kinds of areas. As a matter of fact, they're saying it will allow logging now and all in that space. And judge orders man to pay $500,000 for assaulting police officer who killed himself after the Capitol riots and all in that kind of way. So definitely lots going on. And by the way, New York is to build one of the first U.S. nuclear power plants in generations. So New York will build first major new U.S. nuclear power plant in over 15 years. So definitely that's something going on as well. And Terry Virts, a former astronaut, announces his Texas Senate run. So he's launched a Democratic bid for the U.S. Senate in Texas and all along those lines. So, like I said, lots going on in the world and around the world and in a number of these news stories and all along those lines. So, lots being reported. And definitely we'll be bringing in folks and seeing what they've got to say about these news stories. I've got Rick Rosner with me, and I've got, of course, the great Dr. Sharif as well. So we'll bring everybody in and see what's going on in their world. So, how
All
are
right.
you?
So I'm looking at one story that Iran, because Trump was tweeting about it, also because that he was going to bomb Iran, has moved their 400 kilogram stockpile of enriched uranium.
Oh, well,
So, how big is so? Iran is 1,400 miles from the southeast to the northwest, which is it's as big as Alaska. It's
right.
almost exactly the same size as Alaska, our biggest state. So how big is 400 kilograms of uranium? It would if it were a cube, it would be a cube about 10 inches across, like this. So you're trying to find. I'm sure it's not, you can't keep it in a cube because it would explode.
Right.
But so it would be in a bunch of, I don't know, smaller containers. But so say you could fit it into, I don't know, a dozen softballs, say. You wouldn't do that either, again, because you don't want to keep it super. It gets hot. It does. The more you put together but anyway, it doesn't take up much space, and you're looking for it in a country, as I said, the size of Alaska,
Yeah.
twice as big as Texas.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how we would find it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Dr. Sharif, what is the word in Bangladesh about this ceasefire? Is people excited about it? Do they think that it will hold intact? Or what is the thoughts around this ceasefire?
Regarding this ceasefire, I think this is my honest opinion regarding these issues. Still, people are confused because Trump declared about the ceasefire in between Iran and Israel. Just I'm observing Israel attack Iran again, just in 30 minutes before. So it means that what Trump is discussing or declaring, everything is not true.
Actually, and Trump, and Israel. Yeah, Trump said the F-bomb on live TV because Israel and Iran are not following the ceasefire. He said Israel and Iran don't know what the F they're doing.
Yeah.
So our president, said the F word on live TV.
Yes. Yeah. So it's actually mean that we are getting to World War III. That is the reality. And definitely it's create a huge impact in Asia. So what we are observing in Middle East spillover affecting Asian operations. So highlighted Iran and Israel conflict has led some Asian and Indian airlines to route and cancel flight over West Asia airspace in safety OS. So I think it's also create impact around Asia. So you can see there are a lot of challenge and lot of things happening in Asia. If you see this China and South Korean maritime tension, you can find China has installed a large platform in the disputed Yellow Sea within the provisional measures zone, sparking South Korea suspicious of military surveillance under the guise of aquaculture. Seoul countered by deploying its own structure and escalating Coast Guard presence. So this is another tension. After this, Iran and Israel, you have to understand Asia has a lot of population and it has some political, cultural, many complexity. Then you look around this Cambodia and Thailand border. You can find they have the crisis. The Skirmas near Nehars in 28 killed a Cambodian soldiers. And since then, Thailand closed land crossing and the leaked a diplomatic phone calls and promoting Cambodia to ban Thai agricultural import, fuels, even online media, diplomatic style, strains with border and everything.
Yeah.
So look, this is actually moving, even though this India and Pakistan ceasefires and all of the things close. But if you see the Nepal monarchy protest, Mongolia protest, all of the places it has complexity right now. I want to say we are in World War III, and especially this Muslim community, what we are observing, the Saudi Arabia, this Qatar trying to solve these things. I think Qatar is a very good friend of USA, and then UAE. But Muslim community has dividations, right? We have two type of Muslim. One is Sunni, and another one is Shia. I'm from Sunni communities. Iran, these leaders and all of the things, they are actually Shia. So it is another conflict in between communities. So the last two, Trump, he visited Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. He actually made a good business or cultural interaction and relationship with these all Sunni communities. On the other hand, Muslims do not raise too much of voice for Iran because they are from Shia community. This is another conflict. So there are a lot of conflict. Situation is very bad. I want to say we should stop this kind of crisis as fast as possible. USA definitely has the ability to do that. I think Trump and his diplomat must need to be very, very proactive to solve these things. They have to stop both Iran and Israel as early as possible. Otherwise, the conflict is moving around.
Yeah, just really quick.
The world is not freaking out yet. The stock market is up today. The price of gold and the price of oil are both down a little bit today. If the world were really freaking out, the stock market would be down, oil would be up, gold would be up. So for right now, people are like, I think thinking that Israel and Iran are maybe more rational than our president and will not take it too much farther, but we don't know.
Yeah. But every country, example, I saw today's statement of Bangladesh energy advisor. They are observing the market. They have the possibility. They have to give more subsidy for energy sector. They have to increase the price of the energy sectors. Every government is unstable condition. They do not know what will happen after 24 hours. So that is the crisis. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to bring Sasha in very shortly too, but just out of curiosity, Dr. Sharif, because you said there are two types, and yes, I am aware of that because I have some friends that are in the Muslim community. I would argue that there's actually more like 3 or 4 types because you also have the American Muslims, which are divided and everything like that. So I just wondering, what is your take on the American Muslim movement? Because that's been going on ever since Malcolm X was around. So you have like the ones that follow Farrakhan, which is more like the Malcolm X side, and then you got those that follow Elijah Muhammad and everything like that. So I just wondering, what is the Muslims community take on the American Muslims?
I want to say I was in California. Mm-hmm. I visited your mosque and I meet with many people, both in Muslim and non-Muslim. I want to be more open because in between Jewish, Muslim, and Christians, we have a lot of things, similarities. Yeah. Actually, if you read Quran, if you read Torah, Zabur, and Injil, and all Bibles, and all of the things you can find, we have a lot of things, we have similarities. But after that, human actually create all of the divide and rule because of the political power, because of business, because of cultural issues. Yes, I'm very much open, and but not all of the people in Bangladesh or all of the people in South Asia or Muslim community, they are more open. Look, actually, I want to say that religion should be my personal things. I can practice this. I can do it for my personal reason. But in terms of this TV show, I cannot challenge Rick. I cannot challenge Sasha. Or I cannot challenge Mark. You have to do this. Then this conflict will come. Better we have to be very open-minded. I have to listen what Rick want to say, Sasha want to say, and Mark want to say. Then we can make a meaningful. At the end of the day, we are human. So in terms of what your question about this American Muslim or this Middle East Muslim or Bangladesh Muslim, there is no difference. I want to say we have to be a very good human.
Yeah,
That is my point.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I definitely knew that was a different viewpoint because they're different religious groups, and I've had the pleasure of talking to some of them, including the Black Hebrewites, which believe that they are the original lost tribe out of Israel, and all along those lines. I think I've talked to them 2 or 3 times. I lose how many tracks. How are things going, Sasha, in terms of what's going on with? I know you'll have your show later on this morning and everything, but how are things going on with the conflict in Ukraine, with Russia continuing its invasion and all along those lines? So, what's the latest news? If you can just give us a little bit of a summary, because we know we will go into detail with Ivan and Jonathan later on this morning.
Yeah, well, Trump in this conflict, Israel against Iran, he's done exactly the same thing what he should have done on conflict Ukraine and Russia, because he restrained both sides quite effectively, at least for now. We don't know what will be ahead. There are a lot of unknown in all this situation. It's unknown whether the enriched uranium was, in fact, um, destroyed one way or another or so on. We don't know the impact of these bombs flown on Iranian. So this is all, to me, it's more a show-like situation rather than war. Because the real thing, if you take into account that Iran for the last 40 plus years, big plus by the way, threatened all countries around itself in that region, including Israel, of course, threatening to destroy it, and United States, and so on. And now, finally, when thanks to Israel, all its satellite was essentially completely destroyed, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, all others, whoever is there yet. And finally, Iran itself. So the requisite for United States have the successful air attack on the Iraqis, it was all prepared by Israeli Air Force. So the funniest thing is that Trump takes all the credits, how great visionary he is, and this is a fantastic achievement of American aviation and all that stuff. It's 100% garbage, because all that became possible because of Israeli Air Force. All that became possible because everything was already prepared for American Air Force. And what they've done, okay, they've got some bombing of 3 sites. What was there? Where is enriched uranium? What kind of damage was done? Were any people killed? Like in Israel, for example, claimed that they killed 14 or 15 Iranian physicists, scientists, or so on. Has been documented. What America's done is nothing to be documented, is nothing to even talk about it, and we don't know the extent of Iranian retaliation. Because Iranians, but the fact that there was damage to their nuclear sites or so on is nothing. They could continue fight for years. What Israeli did really incapacitated the Iran, and that's why Israeli should not listen to Donald Trump and finish its job to demolish complete capacity of Iran to retaliate, to start again their enrichment program or anything of that like. Now, by bringing conflict to the end prematurely. That's what Trump is doing. Doesn't solve any problems. There is no resolution to it. Iran is still capable to produce nuclear devices. It still can produce the ballistic missile, which, by the way, hit Israel a big time last night, in spite of all the commotion about ceasefire and all that stuff. I don't see any ceasefire yet. So this is it's a kind of a it's almost like a sword which has two sides, and we don't know which one we are dealing with.
I have a question for Sasha.
Yeah.
What would happen if Iran, is Iran stupid enough to shoot a nuke at Tel Aviv? And also, what would happen if they were that stupid?
Well, I don't think that Iran ever had capacities to do so. And now, for sure, it doesn't have this capacity and will not have for many years to come, maybe never, except that there is a possibility that either Russia or China or somebody else will provide them with this capacity. There is a possibility that they hidden this 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, and nobody knows where it is. In fact, it could end up with not even with the country terrorist, but with a terrorist group like Hussites or somebody else. So this, what happening right now, is put us in very dangerous territory. And it could be a scenario where, God forbid, this enriched uranium, or maybe ready to use nuclear devices, may end up not with the country, whether it's Iran or somebody else, but with a terrorist group of which no one has control, and that could detonate this device anytime, anywhere they want.
But yeah, there's a Tom Clancy book that was made into a Ben Affleck movie called The Sum of All Fears, where a terrorist group takes uranium and smuggles it into the U.S. and blows up the Super Bowl with which, okay, it's a goofy idea, but if a terrorist group could smuggle a nuclear device into Israel, they're not big, and with a dirty bomb, you don't even have to have a nuclear explosion. You can take uranium and blow it up with conventional explosives and contaminate, a large area with radioactive material.
Okay, I agree with everything what you're saying. I would like to make a historical parallel. Let's see when the Allied forces bombed Dresden in 1945. It was devastation of killing 250,000 people. Would that be possible to offer Germany a ceasefire? Oh, look, we bombed your city. We killed 250,000 people. How about if we have a ceasefire, have a peace talk? You'll give a little bit of that, and we'll give you a little bit of that. How about that? Why it never happened then, and why is it happening now? Anybody to answer?
Yeah, because Germany wasn't ready to surrender until they were run by fanatics, and they needed to be, completely devastated. Dresden didn't. At that point, World War II was basically won. And Dresden was a horrible, cherry on top, showing that we weren't going to quit destroying Germany until Germany gave up. Absolutely.
So why not the same approach would work against Iran? Just complete destroying it until whatever is left would capitulate.
Well, for one thing, we're not totally at war with Iran.
No, I'm not talking about United States. United States, it's a kind of an actor who is doing something what would benefit Trump personally. And this raid, what they did, benefited Trump personally. There is no strategic meaning. There is nothing that would stop Iranian enriched program and so on. But Israel is a different thing. Israel has been under threats from Iran for the last almost 50 years, say 45 for sure. And Iran made possible all these satellite actors like Hezbollah, the Hamas, the other groups, Houthis, and so on. So right now, is it possible for Israel to finish Iranian problems for at least next 20, 25 years?
Joey had a point.
Are you advocate? I'm confused, Sasha. Are you advocating wiping Iran off the map?
Not necessarily, because if they would surrender, they would refuse to continue their enrichment program for 20, 30, 55 years, whatever, then they don't need to do that.
But okay, so
what makes your
hold on, wait. Well, let me throw out a bunch of numbers.
Well, before you get to the numbers, because that's going to kind of change what I was going to ask next. Because your answer should have been no, but you're saying not necessarily. So if they don't capitulate to everything that you're asking for, what makes your claim to wipe another country off the map different from another country's claim to wipe another country off the map? I mean, what makes you different?
Well, first of all, I'm not advocating to wipe a country out of the map. With Iran is a different story. Iran was threatening Israel and other countries in the region for the last 45 plus years. So finally, it became impossible to tolerate that, because they've done the proliferation of all the threats through their proxies, such as Hamas, such as Hezbollah, Houthis, and all this stuff. So now it's becoming, when they also started to pull at least twice in the last year and a half, they started to bombardment of Israeli cities and killing civilians. That kind of become intolerable in situation. And Israel was waiting for 2 months. The Trump announced that there will be a deal with Iran within 2 months. Israel was waiting for 2 months exactly, and only on 61st day it started its action, believing that these diplomatic efforts are not going anywhere. Now, when you start essentially a war or a continuation of war or some kind of that magnitude action, there is no step back. You must complete the action, or you never should start one. If you decided that you are capable of starting one, you have to be capable of finish one. The finish is complete capitulation of Iran, complete refusal to participate in any enrichment program, the ballistic missile building program, and become a normal, peaceful nation in that region. If Iran is incapable of doing that, then obviously something has to be done. Regime change, for example, some other options available.
So you're advocating that if they don't adhere to everything that you demand, you will do everything you can to wipe them off the map.
Again, you put your words into my mouth, and I don't appreciate that, because I never, in the last, what I'm speaking for 10, 15 minutes, I never said wiping off the map. I never.
Okay, you want them to either completely.
So why are you putting your words into my mouth?
No, I'm just trying to get clarification.
So hold on, let me talk. You can't do to Iran what was done to Germany. Okay, Iran has. Hold on. So Iran has 50% more people than Germany did in World War II. We threw 120 million, an allied army that had over 100 million troops at Germany. We bombed them for 3.5 years. We destroyed 80% of the dwellings in Germany. Israel doesn't even have a population of 10 million. You can't destroy Iran the way Germany was destroyed. They don't have the manpower. They can destroy all of Iran's military capacity, but they can't do, a 3.5 year campaign to actually destroy the entire country the way Germany was destroyed.
Okay, I appreciate all that. First of all, don't underestimate the technology and weaponry, what's available today and what was not available in the 1940s. Second of all, even if you incapacitate their military power and army, that's more than enough. You don't need to kill babies and old people and so on. Absolutely not. All you need is to make their army impotent to carry any actions against primarily Israel, but also other nations in the region. So either they willingly will denounce their nuclear program, the ballistic missile, they should be accountable for what they've done in the last 45 years. It's a pay baby time. It's a payback time. It's now. Okay?
But Sasha, again, what Rick is pointing out, yes, you cannot have that complete situation that you're going to have that what happened in Germany. That's not feasible. But then on top of that, that gets back to why I keep asking the same question. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds no different than what you're saying that they're saying to you. And I'm trying to look for that sliver of difference, because if you're saying they're a monster and you're saying the same thing the monster is saying, what makes you not a monster? So there has to be some difference. There has to be some way to diplomacy, because if you don't have a way to diplomacy and talking, then you're no different.
Was there a diplomacy possible with Hitler during the Second World War? And
I'm not asking about Hitler. Hitler is a completely different animal. Is Hitler running Iran? Is Hitler the Ayatollah? No, they're different people.
I know. What's the difference?
What's the difference?
What is the difference?
The religion, the actual culture, everything is different.
No.
So what I'm saying is,
okay, here is very simple for you. If you really want to understand, if you want to just play
Sasha,
your game,
you're trying to make it simple. You're trying to say that every person is the same thing. If this person is doing something bad,
when did they say that every
person have to have complete capitulation?
What
you
are
use
you?
that term multiple times.
Everything what you're saying is a fantasy. You are involved in your own fantasy. Here's a very simple thing. Listen, I don't care about your political view. Leave it alone with yourself, and I don't care about it. Now, what I'm going to tell you is this. Israel, to protect its population and future generations, must stop Iran's enrichment program, the weapon building program, the ballistic missile building program, and incapacitate Iranian army. They don't need to wipe out, as you say, Iranian population. Not at all. It's enough for them to absolutely make incapacitate Iranian army, period.
As I asked and pointed out to David Walker yesterday, nobody is advocating for Iran to get a nuclear weapon. So you continually saying that as if you're the only one here who wants them not to get a weapon, that's a poor argument. That's an emotional argument. What I'm asking you is a legitimate question. If they do not, quote unquote, capitulate to everything that you ask, what other recourse can you have? If you're just saying either you completely capitulate or we must bomb you to death. So where's the middle ground is what I'm asking.
Before bombing Iranian nuclear capacities, what Trump told Iran, exactly the same thing. Full unconditional capitulation
we had
Or
the JCPOA. The JCPOA was actually working. At one point, yes, Iran did, kind of block the inspectors from coming in. But however, even the independent investigators said that they were completely complying by what was going on with the JCPOA. Trump came in and then tore up the JCPOA. Then guess who started enriching uranium? Iran started enriching uranium because they had no guardrails to stop them. So again, now we're back to trying to get back to the JCPOA. So again, if you're saying, oh, well, we must either bomb them or they must completely surrender, obviously the JCPOA was in that middle ground. I'm asking to you, why can't we get to that middle ground?
well, if Iran and Israel and United States want to get to that middle ground, good luck, do it.
All right. So a question for Sasha. So Iran's military resources have been somewhat depleted by Israel's attacks. What about Israel's military resources? Because Israel's been fighting in Gaza for a year and a half now, and they've also been fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so are Israel's military stocks, missiles, anti-missile defense, how are they doing in terms of their resources?
When Israel was born in 1948, and it didn't have any organization, any army, nothing, and 5 Arab countries together attacked Israel. So trust me, today Israel is in somewhat better situation than in 1948.
All right.
So
Israel was attacked many times by different forces, and Israel was always victorious and always defeated. And this time is no difference. Trust me.
what happens when the oppressed becomes the oppressor?
Well, we live in a beautiful world where everything is possible. So oppressor can become oppressee and so on and on. It's a purely theoretical question. I would leave it to theorists to run.
The only reason why I asked that to you, Sasha, again, because right now the U.S. has lost a lot of trust with the other countries due to the fact of, not only, as I pointed out, David, yesterday, the tariff situation. Now we have those individuals that we try and negotiate with, like Iran, where, we've turned our back and allowed for things to happen in the middle of negotiations. So how can these countries that we're trying to negotiate down from different levels trust us to do particular things? Russia, China,
You're implying
all these individual places. Wait a second. Let me get to my point.
Okay, faster.
You talk for a long time. So please
Faster,
don't do
do
it.
it faster, because what you're saying makes very little sense. You are polluting air with your talk.
You are sitting here talking over me because you don't want to listen to my point. Okay, let me get there, please. So again, as I pointed out, the loss of trust. Israel is now a part of that. They're tag teamed with the U.S. because of the handshake. Every country knows that the U.S. will protect Israel at any cost and so on and so forth. So at what point, with Israel now speaking genocide Netanyahu speaking genocide, ethnic cleansing, and all that stuff about Gaza. Now with the bombing that's going on in Iran, what place is next? And in that country, that area, which is a powder keg, at what point does Israel begin to be seen as the true oppressor and people begin to attack Israel in a way that you don't like? My point being, diplomacy is lost if we get to that point.
Well, let's be realistic. Israel did not have the world's trust even before the Gaza thing. It was the U.S. and Israel together, and the rest of the world was very skeptical of Israel. Now, U.S. support has been somewhat fractured by political ineptitude and shit stirring within the U.S. So, plus Israel, being very aggressive against Gaza, which is understandable, but also, not something that the world loves. So, Sasha.
But Rick, you just reiterated my point just in a different way.
Hey, just really quickly along those same lines, because actually Doc brought this up earlier and everything along those lines. And I've heard Sasha bring this up a couple of times and everything, but isn't part of the problem that we're thinking of the Arab nations as being sort of monolithic? And as Doc just said himself, there are different factions within the Arab community. There's the Sunnis, there's the Shiites, and as I pointed out, there are even factions that have come out of those factions, because that's really what the American Muslims are. They are a different kind of faction that came out of that. So we're having this thought that they are all monolithic. And I would even argue that not all Jews are monolithic, because you have some that are more Zionist than others and everything like that. So, to your point, Jacoby, in diplomacy, we've got to bring everybody to the table.
Can I answer that?
Please.
Yeah.
I would like to mention that we live in a new world when diplomacy is dead. There is no diplomacy. It's a rule of the strongest. And Trump understands it very well. He doesn't care whether trust he lost, because whether the question is if he had any trust with anybody. It's a very debatable situation. I don't think that he had a lot of trust. Israel doesn't have probably a lot of trust, and that's all okay, because the strongest, the mightiest rules in this world. Take Russia-Ukrainian war. Russia was justified to start this horrible war, which is almost now approaching a Second World War. It's already will be 40 years soon since they're fighting. Million people lost. Probably each side lost a million or close to it people. Was Russia justified? Nobody even discussing it today. They are fighting is enough. Okay, let's make it a peace. Nobody even understand what's happened, why the war started, and who started the war. Nobody cares anymore. Trump is acting from position of a strong man. Okay, make a peace. Oh, you don't want to make a peace? Then go to hell. I'm busy with some other issues or so on. So there is no diplomacy. There is absolutely nothing. It's only the strongest. And finally, Ukraine understand today that they have to prevail on the battlefield. They will never get anything by negotiations and by talking or so on. There are two ways to deal with the problem: capitulate and fight and win. It's two ways. So Iran now facing the same thing what Ukraine is facing: capitulate or fight. Okay.
So let me get clarification again, and what you're saying again. You're saying, because it sounds like you're saying, okay, well, only the mightiest survive.
Yeah.
If you're saying that, then you're advocating for wars everywhere, and this is what was the whole essentially. You're either a slave or a master. You're either a king or a peasant. You're either which is the death of everybody. That's what you're literally.
Okay. I'll tell you.
Wait.
Very good question.
Let me finish. So, if you're advocating for this, that means we can't work together, because if you're either being subservient or you're giving orders.
Absolutely. So, Jatovi, congratulations. You are slowly getting there. And let me help you out with. You're proposing, actually, could be realistic situation that everybody fights everybody. But it's not going to happen for the reason that if you are looking at the military point of view, the attacker is suffering at least three times more wounded and killed people and all atrocities than the defending side. So if you imagine that both sides are about equal, so the attacker will lose three times as much the life ammunition, the life soldiers, and so on, than the defending. So therefore, to attack is not always good for a country unless like Russia, it has tremendous advantages in the ammunition, in the mobilization capacities, and so on and on and on. And even that doesn't help much, because essentially in the last several months, Russia has very, very little progress in roads to Ukraine. They're fighting for some little villages, and there are 3, maybe 4 buildings and so on, and they are losing 1,500 soldiers a day, and they're not getting anywhere. So that's where that war is. And in fact, Ukraine, they're playing not to disappoint Trump. They're playing in all kind of negotiations. Okay, we are going there. Okay, we will go over here and over there. Nothing will happen in these negotiations. It's just a tactic to prolong. In meantime, Ukraine is very cleverly using this time to build its military forces, to bring a new line of drones, missiles, and so on. I'll tell you, I don't think that Russia has so much military advantage as it used to have maybe at the beginning of the war. I think that today Ukraine can take on Russia and actually prevail and win the war on the battlefield.
Hey, just really quickly, and I tell you, Henrik, but it's coming back to something that Doc said earlier, and I can't remember if Doc's got any kids. I know that the rest of you do, and I don't, and everything. But when you talk to your students, how concerned are they, Doc, about this possibility of World War III? Because you said we're on the verge of World War III and everything like that. So, Doc, how are your students feeling about the future of society? Because you've got a lot of students that you talk to globally. Dr. Sharif.
Yeah. Actually, I just listened all of the discussions for today's sessions and all of the things. Some point, actually, I can understand Sasha's point of view. On the other hand, Jatovi has some strong views. But if you see the Asian perspective, the youth perspective, and all of the things, this war create a very, very complex problem right now. A very complex problem. Let's say I do not know what will happen next 2 years. I do not know from Bangladesh. So if we see these Iranian people, many students from Bangladesh, they study in Iran, and Bangladesh government bring back them from Iran. And all of their family right now, they have a lot of tension what will happen there. On the other hand, many people from India, they serve for Israel army, right? They study in the Israel University from India. They are also in tensions. So for this particular issues, I want that war is good. We can bring lot of logic, lot of things, but ultimately, peace is the things it can save human lives. How is moving after all of the discussions of Trump and Israel, then Iran, and all of the things, it's create more problem. How actually the situation come? It's definitely this Palestine and Israel issues. For me, it's my opinion. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm correct. But from my last 15 years experience from around the world, I want to say, first, we need to establish 2 different states. One is Israel, and the other one is Palestine. The Muslim community accept Israel, no choice, because right away we cannot kill millions of people, right? On the other hand, these Palestine people also accept Israel, and we have to accept these Palestine people. Then, when we think about this Hezbollah, this Iran tensions, and all of the things, I think, then it will be solved. But ultimately, right now I want to say we are in the World War III. We need to stop. We need to stop our ego and all of the emotional things, because it's very chaotic, very challenging situation.
We're at a dangerous point in history. This summer is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. If you look back at the history of Europe. Every 80 to 100 years, they had for the last, I don't know, 700 years, they had a huge, horrible war. And each war would kind of inoculate, vaccinate the world against doing it for a while, because the world for a while remembered how horrible it was. But now everybody who fought in World War II is basically dead. We've kind of all forgotten about how horrible it is, and we are in danger of, moving back into, large-scale conflict.
Dr. Sharif, you just mentioned that it should have started with two states, one Israeli and one is Palestinian. Is that okay? In this case, I would like to have your analysis of why it didn't happen starting in 1948, when it was a decision of creation of two states. One is Israel and another one is Palestine. It didn't happen until 1948. It did, though, happen in one side, in Israeli side. The state was actually created and developing, and it's prosperous as now. What's happened with Palestinian states throughout all these years?
Mr. Sasha, if you want to study, you have to go for maybe 1,000 years before.
No,
not only,
I'm not
I'm just focused. Just give me.
Yeah, in 48 there was a decision. I don't know, maybe 500 years ago there was another decision, and 800 years ago there was the third decision. Now in 1948, right aftermath of Second World War, there was a decision of United Nations of all countries to create two states. You disagree with that? You tell me.
If you was not.
You tell me yes or no. No, you tell me yes or no. Was there a decision?
I have to study.
Repeat it. Yes or no.
Yes, no. I cannot decide.
No. Was it?
Let me interject real quick. Let me interject, because Sasha, I think what you're missing is what Doc is saying. You're saying, Sasha, that area was only created roughly 70 years ago. Doc is pointing out there's a historical area.
100 years
when it was created, Shatovi. Don't put your dirty words in my mouth. Just keep your thoughts to yourself.
I do this professionally.
What I'm saying is, in 1948, okay, I can talk over you, I don't care. There was a decision in 1948 to create a state. One state was created and is prosperous.
What Doc is saying.
Another state is failed. Recognize it. Say, yes, you're right, Mr. Sasha, okay?
What Doc is saying. Doctor is talking about the region has been there for
Let's speak doctor about
Doc is talking about region has been there for 1,000 years. Doc is talking about the region has been there for 1,000 years. Thousands of years.
Oh, 5,000 years, 7,000 years, 11,000 years. Go for it.
Only takes 70.
All right, this isn't doing any good. Let's put it in a nutshell. Since 1948, the Palestinians have consistently voted against their own best interests and refused to acknowledge their shitty reality that they lost political power and they voted against statehood in 48. They voted terrible leadership in, and they have worked against their own best interests. And so are they partially responsible? Yeah, but
no, the U.S. voted for slavery against their best interests. We can do this all day. I think Doc was actually pointing out a little bit better of a situation, what he sees from that situation. So it'd be great to hear the rest of what
I discuss a little bit about the NAFTA conference in Budapest, which may interest Sasha. Fox International, Fox Broadcasting is interested in picking up your Ukraine show. So Ukraine, Russia, China may be sold to Fox, and then you guys are out of here. But one thing that, because they're going to do a review, you need to hopefully get an improved background, because I know that the backgrounds have been inconsistent. So if you can bring up your production quality, it'll be helpful. And when I get back, I'll share with you the people we're discussing with Fox we'd hate to lose you to the Fox network, but you guys may not have a problem with that. That's entirely up to you. But I'll share the information on that.
Thank you,
the
Nick.
World Talent, Global Talent Show has been received quite nicely, Dr. Sharif, and we may have what we call co-producers that will work with us on producing that particular show. So we've made headways into those two particular areas. And with that, that's about it from NATPE in Budapest. I know that we're not taking over the world or destroying the world. That's what goes on this network. But we are trying to improve at least the little world that we know. But you may want to share that with Dr. Lockwood, because he's the guy who said, oh, you got to talk to Fox. Okay, so I talked to Fox. What am I supposed to tell you? You know? Now, I think Sasha has to go because he's doing the Ukraine show.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
All right, goodbye, everybody. See you.
Oh wait, yeah. Well, we have to exit this one. Just a minute. I can't exit. Just un momento, por favor.
Okay.
Go to media assets.
The arguing will continue this evening on World.
The drama always continues on World Edition
At 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.